learners. I invite to the session Vendor Rating. After knowing about the sourcing of suppliers, now we shall pass on to the rating of the vendors, namely the suppliers. Many large-scale organizations depend on small and medium-sized industries for the requirements of components, sub-assemblies and special items. The small units which are producing these components, sub-assemblies and special items need guidance in the form of technical know-how, and they also require assured orders for their commercial viability. They have to be nursed by the bigger industries in the initial stages. This interdependence is fully recognized, and this forms the sound and harmonious vendor-vendee relationship. Any organization should realize that development of vendors is a planned effort and does not happen by itself. So pre-planning of the development should be made. Vendors are considered to be an important link of any organization, and quality control activities are said to be an extension activity of the factory quality assurance effort. Purchase and quality control are said to be jointly responsible in implementing the vendor development system. They make use of the expertise of the production engineering and research and development departments in the vendor development. A good supplier or a vendor is an invaluable resource to an organization requiring the vendor's product or service. Such suppliers make a direct contribution to the success of the firm. They can assist their customers with the product development, value analysis and timely delivery of the components with the precise specifications at the desired level of quality. A cordial and a good buyer-seller relationship facilitates the buyer's efforts to gain superior performance, additional service and cooperation on the cost reduction programs and the willingness to share in the new process and the procedures. A right supplier is one who is highly ethical in his own behavior and who keeps his own words or the promises and has a high regard for a cordial buyer and seller relationship. He may be progressive in his business and he may be seeking a technical advancement to improve the quality of the products. He should charge a reasonable price and he should be a reliable person. On the basis of the objectives of the materials management, the vendor development and rating is considered to be a more significant activity in any corporate bodies. The main aim of any corporate is to select a supplier and develop him according to his own requirements. The scope of the vendor development includes identifying the new sources of supplier and keeping records of the available suppliers from time to time. The department should also drop out the existing sources of suppliers who are not up to the expectations and who are proved to be inefficient. The purchase department should always invite tenders in the newspapers through advertisements from the suppliers. Once again, the purchase department should be having its own aim as to develop the subcontracting units and the ancillary units. And again, the purchase department should maintain a register of suppliers who are approved suppliers. These approved suppliers will be written in this register of suppliers, and this will be properly maintained by the purchase department. At any one single point of time, these suppliers may be contacted and orders may be placed. These approved suppliers will be the proven suppliers with their own continuous supply of materials and with a good reputation. The purchase department should address the tactical issues and also the efficiency issues. And the purchase department should ensure that the potential suppliers should be carefully evaluated and these suppliers have sufficient potential to satisfy the partners in the supply chain. Deciding whether to use a competitive bidding or a negotiation will form as a basis for source selection. So they may go in for bidding or they may go in for negotiation with the suppliers. Selecting an appropriate source or being a team leader responsible for this task through evolving a proper method of vendor rating will be the another aim or the scope of the purchase department. The buyer and the seller, namely the vendor and vendee, relationship must be properly cultivated and maintained by the corporates. The vendor development is considered to be a continuous process and they must start from the collection of names and addresses from different authentic sources. After the collection is over, the list of prospective vendors may be drawn up for the evaluation purpose. So the scope of vendor development includes identifying the new sources of supplier base, dropping out the inefficient suppliers, advertising in the newspapers, inviting tenders from the suppliers, developing the subcontractors and the ancillary units, maintaining the register of suppliers with the approved and proven suppliers, then addressing the tactical issues in purchasing, then the potential suppliers evaluation should be made. The negotiation or bidding has to be made as a form of a supplier selection or a source selection, and the team leader should be made responsible for the vendor rating and maintaining a vendor-vendee relationship. Based on the vendor development scope, let us now see what are the different sources of information that is available on the potential vendors. Because the very first step in the vendor development is we have to create a base for the potential suppliers, database for the different sources of suppliers. So we must see about the sources of information from which the potential vendors' names will be available. Every purchase department in a company must maintain a classified list of potential vendors, that is, the vendors who are going to supply the materials regularly and a continuous manner to the company. And these regular suppliers and proven suppliers can be had from the following sources. First one is the trade registers and the directories. The trade registers and directories are available at the national level and the international level. These directories includes the names of the manufacturers and suppliers of all kinds of materials, whether they are said to be specialized or not. These directories will give a complete information regarding the suppliers, namely the addresses, regional offices, the types and the ranges of products, and the names and addresses of the dealers or agents of those companies. The electronics digital interchange is said to be a popular type of source wherein the names of the suppliers can be taken. All sales information is stored by a foreign manufacturer in his computer. With a personal computer, one can access the other through the web and they can get the information. In national level also, the trade directories are available which can give the complete information. Trade journals. Many leading companies advertise in trade journals, and these constitute an important source of information about suppliers. These journals will also carry about the articles on specific industries, and these articles will contain valuable information on the developments in the industry. And the developments may be the technological developments or the product developments, etc. Normally, the industries which are in the same line of business will form trade associations. Say for example, the textile companies will form a textiles association, steel will form a steel association, chemical, likewise, pharmaceutical, etc. So the industries which are in the same line of business will form associations, and that is called as the trade association. These trade associations will form a trade journal, and these trade journals will be for specific industries, and they will give the latest developments, either it is in the form of a product or in the form of a technology, to the outside world. The information may be in the form of advertisements or it may be in the form of articles. So a purchase department should benefit itself if they subscribe to such journals. So the updated information and the relevant information can be culled out, and it may be classified, indexed and stored in the appropriate files. So wherever necessary, this information can be used by the purchase department. So trade journals will reveal the latest developments in a specific industries. Next is the telephone directories. The telephone directories will have classified advertisements, whether if it is alphabetically arranged or it may be item wise arranged, or it may be group wise of the products, etc. The advertisements in the telephone directories will be useful information and a good information, source of information to the purchase department regarding the suppliers. Next comes the suppliers' catalogs. Many manufacturers bring out the catalogs or pamphlets periodically giving the details of the products they manufacture. These catalogs can be easily obtained on request from the suppliers. The catalogs may contain the information regarding the technology, product specifications, the performance characteristics, the price, the availability, etc. These catalogs can be kept group-wise and this will be circulated among the industries. So the manufacturers will bring out the catalogs with the available information regarding the products or the components or the spare parts they produce, and they will give it to the industries. These pamphlets or your catalogs may be issued on request or as an advertisement. So this will form a good source of information regarding the suppliers and regarding the product also. Next is the trade exhibition and fairs. The trade exhibitions and fairs will be conducted in the central places mainly to attract the demand. So the information on new suppliers, new products, any modifications, any upgradations of the old products will be shown in the exhibitions and the trade fairs. Normally these trade fairs will be arranged by the trade associations which are said to be of similar industries, group of similar industries, and they are going to give the complete information regarding the industries. Visiting these exhibitions or the fairs will be said to be an excellent opportunity for expanding the knowledge of the buyer regarding the availability of the existing products and also the feasibility of the new products introduction. The next source is the salesman. Salesmen are said to be the good source of information for all possible sources of supply. They are always in touch with the market and they will keep their eyes and ears open to absorb all the developments, to absorb all the information that is existing in the place around them. They will converse with the potential customers and they will have their own estimates of the demand of the existing product, and they will come to know about the acquaintance of the similar products in the market, and they will also tell about the feasibility of the success of the introduction of the new products in the market. A buyer can get the source of information from the salesman, and these competent salesmen will have their own knowledge and they will tell about the various sources of supply and the various products and services available in the market. These salesmen should be treated in a very courteous manner and they must be given proper opportunity to make their own sales representations. As they are in direct touch with the market, they are said to be a reliable source, and if the salesmen are said to be competent to collect the information regarding the suppliers from the market, then this will be the right source of information for the companies. Next is the company personnel. Specialist personnel in other departments like engineering, sales, design, etc. within the organization are said to be the good source of information. Through their own professional association or through their own social groups, these personnel will come to know about the good suppliers existing. The personnel in the R&D department usually have a valuable information, and that is said to be their own nature of work. The buyer should tap all the sources properly and he has to select the best one by maintaining the relationship with their own colleagues in other departments requesting them from time to time and to lend useful information. Next is the supplier information file. The purchase department of a company should keep the supplier information file regarding the past and the present suppliers with their own names, the history of their delivery, the supplier's quality record, etc. Supplier information files are said to be very important to know about the proven suppliers and the defaulting suppliers, and the purchase department may be careful enough in selecting the suppliers. The purchase departments of other companies will also form as a source of information. The exchange of information on mutual basis with the purchase departments of other companies can be extremely useful, not only with regard to the new sources, but with regard to the evaluation of the existing suppliers and also to predict about the market prices of the existing products. Then filing of the mail advertisements. We may receive many advertisements through mail, and this mails, if they are said to be worth saving, the purchase department can save the mails and they can give the numbers and index them properly. When the purchase department wants to know about the new sources, they can refer to this mails and they can refer the sources by seeing to the index numbers and review the appropriate brochures and booklets immediately and contact them. Local purchasing management associations. These associations are said to be the local affiliates of National Association of Purchasing Management, and they are going to publish the list of numbers and the names of the suppliers. The main objective of this association is that the members will help one another in every possible way to locate and evaluate the new sources of suppliers. Next is the public tenders. One of the most common methods of sourcing is to give advertisements in the newspapers, whether it is in the vernacular language or in the other papers. The buyer states the product or the service he or she wants to have, and with the product specifications they need. The specifications and the terms of purchase must be clearly mentioned in the advertisements. Based on the advertisements, that is the tender notices they are giving, the suppliers will give their own quotations, and all these quotations will be received by the purchase department and then evaluated. These tenders may be given at the national level or at the international level. So the sources of information for selecting a supplier may be the trade registers or the directories, trade journals, telephone directories, suppliers' catalogs, trade fairs and exhibitions, salesmen, the company personnel from other departments, supplier information file, the purchase departments of the other companies, the mail advertisements, the local purchase management associations, and issuing of tenders in the newspapers. Before a supplier is selected, efforts must be made to find out the various sources from which the materials can be purchased. The following aspects are to be considered before selecting a supplier. By which industry is the required product purchased? So from which industry we are going to purchase the product? What is the commercial availability of the product? Whether it is available as required in the market or not? How much quantity is to be purchased? And what is the time available for making such purchases? the purpose of the purchase and the time of the purchase, whether it is a repeated purchase and it is a monthly purchase or fortnightly purchase, etc. If it is happen to be a repeated purchase, the purchase manager has to see to that the availability of the particular component or the spare parts is continuous in the market. If it is to be occasionally purchased, what is the strategy that is framed for purchasing that particular material? What is the volume of purchase of the required item? That is the size of the purchase. So before going to the final decision, we are going to select an industry from which we are going to purchase. What is the commercial viability of the product? What is the quantity to be purchased? What is the volume of purchase? The time of purchase? The purpose of purchase and the frequency of the purchase. These aspects have to be taken care of before a list of potential suppliers is drafted. For a one-time purchase, elaborate inquiries and evaluation of the suppliers may not be necessary, unless, of course, the item is said to be very costly and of highly technological in content. Say we are going to purchase a highly sophisticated machinery, then you can go in for the proper inquiry and the cost is very high. The item is of capital nature, then the inquiry should be made in depth and we have to select the supplier. Suppose if the materials are said to be repetitive in nature and when it is made in a normal conditions, which is said to be a perennial one, then those raw materials or components that are to be purchased do not need a detailed evaluation, because already we will have a supplier with a proven record of continuous supply and at the best possible price and the quality. When we are going to have this repetitive purchasing, a detailed investigation need not be made. Now, after seeing about the sources of information and the points to be noted before selecting a supplier, we are going to see now the stages in the sources of selection and evaluation. The first stage is the survey stage. All the possible sources are to be explored and their capabilities are to be evaluated on the basis of the prima facie information, either that is supplied by the vendor himself or through the advertisements or catalogs or brochures, etc. The prima facie information is the first-hand information that is received by the purchasing department. So the first-hand information may be received from the above sources discussed. It may be from a salesman or it may be from the market directly or through advertisements or trade fairs or your trade associations, telephone directories, or from the company personnel inside, or whether it is the personnel in the other company's purchase department. Whatever may be the source of information, that information should be prima facie, that should be the first-hand information, and that may be directly supplied by the vendor through his catalogs, or it may be collected from the market. Then these sources must be explored and these capabilities must be evaluated properly. After the exploration and evaluation of all these sources, the company should draw up a list and go for your further investigation. After the further investigation has been made, the company has to prepare a list of approved suppliers, and these approved suppliers will be contacted, and a vendor who is willing to come for the registration with the company has to apply to the company with a supplier registration form. He has to fill the supplier registration form and send it to the company. Next is the enquiry stage. A detailed analysis is made after obtaining as much relevant information as necessary. After receiving all the information, the enquiry should be made by the purchase department regarding the authenticity and reliability of the source of information. Only if the purchase department is satisfied about the reliability and authenticity, they can proceed further. Suppose if they are not satisfied with the authenticity and reliability, the vendor may be asked to provide some additional information in a standard enquiry form, and even if that information is not satisfactory, the purchase department officer, any responsible officer, must go for a planned visit in the vendor's place if necessary. By way of making a personal visit in the vendor's place, it can satisfy itself regarding the technical requirements and the economical feasibility of the contracts to be made to the suppliers. So the enquiry must be made after collecting the sources, and if they are not satisfied, they can collect the information direct from the vendor. Even if it is not satisfied, then the purchase manager can go in for the plant visit at the vendor's place. Next is the negotiation and selection. After the survey stage and the enquiry stage, the purchase manager will be satisfied with the list of approved vendors. There may be certain vendors who may not be up to the expectations of the purchase department, and those vendors will be dropped and they won't be considered for negotiations. So the enquiry stage may reveal that quite few of those considered at the survey stage do not come up to the expectations of the purchase manager. The vendors who have been satisfying the expectations will pass the enquiry stage, then they will come to the negotiation stage. They will be called for the negotiations to discuss the business possibilities and for clarifications of various terms of purchase, namely the credit, the quantity discount, the quality control, etc. Now, finally, a list of approved and selected vendors will be drawn up by the purchase manager. After selecting the vendor and negotiating with them, the company will go in for the experience stage. At that stage, the buyer evaluates the performance of the vendor. There is a feeling in the minds of many people that the objective supplier evaluation is to shift the good from the bad and leave out the bad. This is not true. The objective is to improve the performance of the vendors in the areas in which they are deficient, such as quality, delivery time, after sales, etc. It is same as the annual appraisal of the employees of the company. The main idea is to correct their own defaults or the mistakes and improve their own performance. So if any technical help is needed by the vendor, then the corporate may extend the assistance, technical assistance to the vendor's company. The evaluation will go in for the quality and delivery. The quality will be evaluated by the rate of rejection of the materials supplied by the vendor. If the rate of rejection is very high, the vendor evaluation will come to an end saying that the vendor is not up to the expectation. Rejections often entail a lot of problems in production for the buyer's company, especially if the material is of high value item, for which usually the buffer stocks are said to be very low. Production stoppage may also occur with its consequences. So the quality is said to be the basic parameter for the evaluation of the vendors. So this quality will be decided depending upon the rate of rejection of the materials. As and when the materials are received by the company from the suppliers, it will be checked whether it is as per the quality and as per the sample shown and as per the specifications given, etc. If it is not up to the quality or the expectations or the specifications, then that will be returned to the suppliers and that will be included in the terms of purchase also. So if the rejection rate is very high, then the vendor is not rated properly. He will be rated at a very low level and he may be removed from the list of approved suppliers also. If the rate of rejection is very low, then the vendor will be evaluated as good and they will be taken as an approved supplier and he may be continued in the future purchases also. The second main component is the delivery. If the delivery is not as per the schedule, the similar problem will arise. The buyer's production may be working on a very high inventory. If the delivery is not properly made, then that will involve a huge cost in holding the inventory. Suppose if there is a very tight inventory available in the buyer's place, that will also cause a problem in the continuous production. So whatever the delay that vendor is going to make in delivering the materials, then that will affect the buyer's place also. So the production may run out or the production may be hampered. There may be stock out conditions. So these stock out conditions are not said to be conducive one for the organizations. So the vendors will be evaluated based on the quality of the raw materials and also the delivery of the raw materials in a proper time. So after having this experience stage woman, the companies are experiencing the quality of the vendors or the relationship with the vendors. After this, they will go for the sample approval. On a satisfactory assessment, samples are obtained for evaluation with regard to the various dimensions, the property of the materials, the finishing process, etc. The next comes the assistance to the vendors. After the sample is approved, an order will be placed to the vendors and the suppliers are to be provided with the necessary tools, fixtures and gauges on a selective basis if needed. The gauges have to be calibrated periodically free of cost by the buyer. To assist the subcontractors in the execution of their jobs, a technical cell may also be established in the buyer's place and they may give an extended facility to the subcontractors. These cells should monitor and improve the know-how of the subcontractors and give them training in the methods of manufacture and quality control techniques. So the current unit will go and visit the subcontractor's place and check the quality as and when required. The semi-skilled laborers in the subcontractor's place will also be given proper training by the buyers or the company personnel to improve the methods of manufacture and to ensure the quality of the materials to be supplied. Next is the motivation to the vendors. The vendors are to be encouraged to diversify their own line of activity from their initial orientation. Suppose if a subcontractor is successful in machining of castings, then they may be encouraged to take up the die casting, or they may be going in for some other manufacturing activities other than the one which is specialized one. They may go for welding, or they may go in for the machining process, etc. So the vertical integration can also be achieved to encourage the vendors. The vendor-vendee get-togethers has to be conducted mainly to enhance the mutual trust and the cooperation, besides highlighting the business order schedules, the price and the quality. So apart from the business, the vendors must be given a personal touch and they must be brought into the company for the get-togethers. This interaction of the vendors with the senior executives of the organization will have a great motivation in the minds of the vendors, and they feel that they are considered and they are recognized in the company, and they will have a mutual trust with the company, and they will have a oneness among the company, and they will increase the productivity. And once again, they will also come out with their own problem sharing. Suppose if they have some technical problems or labor problems or some other financial problems, they'll come out with the problems and discuss with the senior executives, and the senior executives may extend help to come out of the problems. So the vendor-vendee get-togethers is said to be an essential one to maintain a cordial relationship between them. So this evaluation stage, the selection and evaluation of the vendors, is considered to be an important activity of any purchase department. So they have to cross first one as survey stage. The survey stage will be the sourcing of your suppliers, exploring the suppliers, finding out the capability of the suppliers, and when suppliers will be asked to fill up a supplier registration form. After receiving all the registrations, enquiry stage will be there, and the proper enquiry should be made. If the enquiry is not satisfactory, they can ask the vendors to give a direct information, and even if it is not satisfactory, the senior executives can visit a vendor's place and make them contented. Next is after selecting inquiry stage, they will go in for the negotiation and selection stage. So the purchase terms and other terms will be discussed, and they will go for a list of the suppliers final. Next is your experience stage. The experience stage will be undergone by the purchase department based on the approvals list. So this experience list will be experience stage will be evaluated with the quality and delivery. Quality is judged with the rate of rejection, and delivery is judged with the time schedule that is followed by the vendors. After this, they will go for the sample approval, and the sample approval should be made with all the specifications, engineering specifications. Then assistance to the vendors will also be made, whether it is a technical assistance or a financial assistance, and that can be given to the vendors, and the vendors will be motivated, and they may be asked to divert their own production, and the vertical integrations can be followed. And finally, the vendor-vendee get-togethers have to be made, and with regard to the maintaining of the relationship between the vendor and vendee, and to create a mutual trust and cooperation among themselves. So this vendor rating is considered to be a highly important activity with regard to the purchase manager, and the vendor development is also said to be an important activity. The vendors will be selected on the basis of the various sources of information, as we have already discussed, namely the trade registers, trade journals, telephone directories, the suppliers catalogs, trade fairs and exhibitions, the salesman directories, company personnel, the supplier information file, the purchase departments of other companies, mail advertisements, local purchase management associations, then issuing of tenders in the newspapers. So after getting the information about the potential vendors. The vendors will be selected and evaluated by having the survey stage, enquiry stage, negotiation and selection stage, experience stage, sample approval stage, then assisting the vendors, motivating the vendors, and maintaining a relationship with the vendors. So, this vendor rating and development will be based on the first activity of sourcing the vendors and selecting the vendors. The vendor rating system may result in the following benefits. This will help in minimizing the subjectivity in judgment and make it possible to consider all the relevant criteria in assessing the suppliers. It also provides a feedback from all areas in a single package. It facilitates better communication with the vendors and provides overall control based on the vendors. It also requires a specific action to correct the weaknesses in the identified performances. It establishes continuous review standards for the vendors, thus ensuring continuous improvement of vendors' performance. Building the vendor partnerships, especially with the suppliers having the strategic links. Then developing a performance-based culture. So the benefits of the vendor rating is said to be exhaustive. It minimizes the subjectivity in the judgment and it gives a proper communication with the vendors and overall control on the vendor base. It can also get a feedback from the vendors and it can correct the weaknesses in the performances, going for the continuous review standards for the vendors. It ensures a continuous improvement in the vendors' performance and it builds a proper relationship with the vendors, having a good partnership with the strategic links, and they can go in for the culture which is created on the basis of performance. So vendor rating systems provide a process for measuring those factors that may add value to the buying firm through value addition or a decreased cost. This process will continuously evolve and the criteria will change to meet the current issues and the concerns. Thus, the vendors or suppliers are given a standing or a status or a title according to their attainment of some level of performance, such as delivery, the lead time, the quality of the materials, the price of the materials, or a combination of delivery, the lead time, the quality, and the price. The motivation for the establishment of such a vendor rating system is a part of the manufacturer's efforts and other service firms to ensure the desired characteristics of the purchased product or service is built in and should not be determined later by some other after the fact indicator. The vendor rating may take the form of hierarchical ranking from poor to excellent and whatever rankings the firm choose to insert in between the two extremes, poor and excellent. So vendor rating is said to be a direct result of the widespread implementation of vendor development and the source selection. So this is said to be a critical role of a buyer and a supplier relationship, which is considered to be very important. So in this session, we have seen about how the vendors will be sourced and how they will be selected by the purchase department of any concern. Thank you.